So, following the stop being a sourdough sheep video, the comment section got pretty lively with the different methods that you use to make sourdough. There was lots of chatter about the sourdough mixing process, to be specific. So in this video, I want to show you the mixing technique that I've developed for my own baking. Now, I don't have anything against autolyse or adding the salt further down the process. And if you enjoy these processes, then there's no harm in doing them. But in my experience, neither of them are necessary to improve my method or indeed the final loaf of sourdough. So today I'm going to dive just a bit deeper into my mixing process, and I'm going to explain why I've constructed it the way that I have. It's simple, it's efficient, and best of all, it won't keep you chained to the kitchen. And by the way, this dough, it makes a lovely malted barley and honey sourdough loaf. So I'm going to include the weights just in case you want to try this dough out for yourself. Okay, so I start off by adding 374 grams of water to the mixing bowl. Now this is a 72% hydrated dough. I always start with the water so that if I overshoot, it's easy to remove a little. If I add the flour to the mixing bowl first, I won't be able to remove any excess water that I might add by mistake. Next, I add 11 grams of salt. I want the salt to dissolve in the water so that it's easily distributed throughout the dough. And I do want to be clear here for any beginners, there is no need to add the salt separately further in the process. It just adds another step and it certainly doesn't improve the loaf. Okay, so I'm going to set this bowl to one side, and in a separate bowl, I'm going to blend my flour. I'm going to add 419 grams of strong bread flour, 56 grams of whole wheat flour, and 56 grams of malted barley. If I was to add the flour separately to the water, it would take a lot more effort to mix the dough to ensure those different flours were properly blended. This is really apparent when you use something like malted barley because it's got this orange tinge to it, and you need to work the dough for a long time just to blend it in well. Mixing this flour dry is an absolute doddle. And now I can give the water just a quick stir to make sure that salt is dissolved. And then I add about half the flour mixture. Now this doesn't need to be weighed, you can just eyeball it. Now I blend the mixture to a kind of porridgey consistency. Again, this mix is loose, so it's easy peasy to mix with a spoon. Right, so now it's time to add 56 grams of ripe sourdough culture and 28 grams of a pretty sticky honey. Now, because we've created this kind of porridgey consistency, the culture and even that sticky honey are super easy to blend and quickly distribute through the mix. Now, if my recipe called for any other inclusions to be added at the mixing stage, then they would also go into the bowl now. Now, after a quick but thorough blend, the rest of the flour goes into the mix, and then I simply use a spoon to bring it together into a rough dough. Now, once the dough is at this stage, we've got a decision to make. We can either complete the mix now, or we can incorporate a rest into the process. Now, your available time and your schedule will normally dictate which one you choose. So, if you want to complete the mix now, you simply turn the dough out onto the worktop, and then you can use the heel of your hand to finish the mixing process. A couple of minutes is normally enough to create a really decent dough. But if I've got time, I prefer to leave the dough covered in the bowl for 15 to 30 minutes so the flour has a chance to hydrate. Here's that dough after 30 minutes, and even without autolysing the flour and the water separately, we've already got good gluten development considering it's so early in the process, and that's why I never bother with autolysing. I just don't need it. Now in about 30 seconds I can create a soft, smooth dough ball ready for the bulk ferment, and that is a thorough hand mixing process finished. Now while this is a simple process that can indeed be completed in one visit to the countertop, it still produces a cracking loaf of sourdough. But it doesn't require you to be chained to that countertop. This is the process I use when mixing, and it produces great results. But as I'm always in pursuit of improving my own baking, I'd like to know what your method is for mixing your dough, even if it involves a stand mixer, or you disagree with my method and you think it could be improved. Let me know down below. Now, if you missed the sourdough sheep video, you can join me over there by clicking here. But before you do that, give the subscribe button a quick click to join me in next week's video. A huge thank you for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Stay tuned.